Hi, I'm Bridgette with PotomacBeads.com. Join me today in creating a fun beaded component hairpin. I'm actually wearing one in my hair already. If you do need any of the materials, they are listed below me in the description area as well as at the beginning of the video. So gather up everything you need and come create with me. So to start our hairpin, I already have 9 of my round trios and a seed bead in between each. I'm using an 11-0. So just going through that first hole of your round trio, and then what you're going to do is go back around, going through your first round trio here, kind of pulling that nice and tight so you get a nice ring going on here. And if you want, you can go through those seed beads and just the first hole of your round trio one more time just to make sure that we do have that nice and tight. So again, just running your needle through, and I am using a size 10 needle on this because at the end we will be going through beading foundation. Or you can use ultra suede as well, but either way I wanted to make sure I did have a sturdy needle for that. So I'm using a size 10 and then just the 0.006 Wildfire. So coming around to that first round trio, I'm going to jump up into our second hole of our round trio. And from there, I'm going to pick up my 2mm crystals and just pick up one and go through your next round trio, again staying in that second hole. So we'll go around all the way until we meet back to where we started. So just adding a crystal in between each one of those. So I'm adding on my last crystal to my second row and pulling that nice and tight. And once I'm through that round trio, I'm going to jump up into the third hole here and start on my third row. So for my third row, I'm going to pick up an 11-0, my 3mm faceted round, and another 11-0, and jump over to my next round trio, going through that third and last hole. We're going to do the same all around, finishing up that third row. So again, it's an 11, my 3mm faceted round, and another 11, jumping over to the next round trio and going around. So we'll finish that up with the third row. So after you're finished with your third row, you're going to make your way back down to the first row. And I did just tie off my thread with my tail end, and I trimmed that off. And when you do that, make sure you're trimming off the tail end and not your working end. So I'm down back at my first row, and I want to make sure that I'm coming out of a round trio. So here I'm coming out of the first hole in my round trio, and I have my 2-hole cabochon here, and so it'll fit right around, our ring will fit right around our cabochon. So what you want to do is just pick up one of your, going through one of your holes in the cabochon, and just seeing where that lays on the opposite side. So I'm going to go through this round trio right across, just going through that first hole and coming out of our 11-0 seed bead there, and just pulling that, and then going down through that second hole of the cabochon. And this doesn't have to be super tight because we will eventually be sewing it onto our filigree piece here. So again, going through that round trio that's on the opposite side. And I'm just going to do this one more time just to make sure that it is secure in there. through. And it's okay if your ends do kind of curl up, because again, when we sew it onto our filigree piece, it'll kind of fix that problem. So again, going back down and finishing off over on the opposite side. Okay. So again, when we sew it onto the piece, our sides will eventually come down, so you won't be worrying about that curling. So here we'll just tie off our thread, and then we'll start the next step. So our next step is sewing on our cabochon onto our filigree piece here. And I already did a few of the stitches. What you're going to do is lay down your cabochon, and coming out of the hole of the cabochon, you're going to come up through any of these holes in the filigree, kind of the ones in the middle row, but wherever the hole kind of fits, that's exactly where you're going to be coming up. And you'll move over about 2 spots, and you'll go down through the filigree, which lines up with the second hole of your cabochon, and just go through that second hole in onto the other side and do the exact same. So you'll come up through the filigree, go over about 2 spaces, you'll go down through the filigree and through that second hole of your cabochon. So you do want to do this a few times so that you know that it is on there securely. And from there, we're going to go ahead and work on our back side here. So I have a piece of bead foundation that I cut into a circle. This does not have to be perfect because you won't end up seeing it, just as long as it's about the size of, you know, that part of your filigree piece that kind of sticks up there. So just cut it so it's about that size. I have beading foundation on this one. On this one over here, I used Ultra Suede. So it's really whatever you have or whatever you are more comfortable with. So what we're going to do from here is fold your circle in half. And just using scissors, I'm going to do 2 little slits. You don't want to, you do want to make sure you're not cutting your whole circle. Just 1 slit, and then about a little bit over, you're going to do a second slit. And what that's going to do is you're going to be able to put on your bobby pin. I'll just kind of demonstrate it here while it's not on our piece. And eventually, once we have that sewn on, it'll be able to stick right there. So that's what those slits are for, but we're going to take this off, and that's kind of the last step. So from here, this is why I wanted to use a stronger size 10 needle. We're just going to go up through our beading foundation. And what's nice about the filigree is that there are holes all around, so you don't really have to worry about where you're going. And again, this part does not have to be perfect because you won't end up seeing this. So don't worry about making, you know, the stitches really nice and pretty. Although if you do, that is quite all right too. I'm just kind of going through the filigree and coming up wherever the needle ends up, going over a few centimeters, and then down the filigree, which usually you will most likely come into a hole, and just really stitching this on here. So again, it does not have to be perfect. As you can see, my stitches are kind of all diagonal and all over the place. If you do want to take the time to make your stitches nice and pretty, that you can definitely do. So after this stitch, or after we stitch on our beading foundation, we'll go ahead and attach our bobby pin, and that'll be the last step. So once you have your stitches all around, and as you can see, mine are really kind of just wherever I could place them, I tied off my thread, I'm going to go ahead and just trim down my thread, and taking your bobby pin, I'm going to open it up, and looking through for your 2 slits here, you're just going to go through both of them. And so when you are making your slits, you do want to make sure that it is thick enough to, or wide enough to fit the bobby pin through there. So I'm just going through that top bit of the bobby pin, and here I am going to take a little bit of my super new glue and just put a little dab on that kind of setting there. And then pull your bobby pin through, and it's going to sit kind of right there on the edge. So you can kind of let that dry, of course, before you start to wear this. But there we have our nice little component bobby pin. And this is a really simple technique you can use with any beading component. So you know, you can just glue on any component to this bobby pin, or you can go ahead and add that backing there and kind of slip that through. So kind of keep that in mind when you're thinking of things that you can make. Any kind of beading component you can turn into these nice fun pins. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed creating your own beaded component hairpiece here. Remember, if you do need any of the materials, they are listed below me, as well as links to both PotomacBeads.com and .eu. As always, we love to hear from you, so comment below, and I'd love to see how this design helped inspire your own.